This is the design of addiction, communicating about addiction. Now, addiction exists as the synchronized relationship of the mind-consciousness system with something or someone that exists within and of this world, designed by other mind-consciousness systems within and of the unified consciousness field. Now, the example I am using is the addiction to substances such as drugs and the abuse thereof. Now, drugs connect to the emotional charged nature that exists within and of you as what you have defined as who you are. In other words, if you are a very emotionally charged human being, whether you are in extensive suppression, depression, inner conflict, constant turmoil, angry, sad, alone, lonely, etc., depending on the intensified nature of those aspects of emotional experiences within you will depend on the extensive nature of your addiction to substances such as drugs. For instance, drugs' chemical construct as literally every chemical construct. This is drugs, alcohol, etc. Even sex, interesting. The sex induces a chemical construct generation within and of the human physical body. Now, both alcohol, drugs, and sex have the exact same chemical constructed compound nature experience that charges within the mind consciousness system of human beings. And this addiction is fueled with emotions of the mind consciousness system which the human being experience as themselves, as who they are. So human beings that are prone to addiction understand that which you are consuming, or sex is like a consummation, so that which you're consuming as, for instance, drugs, alcohol, and sex, what happens is your mind consciousness system creates a synchronized relationship between the drugs, the alcohol, and the sex, for instance. And in that synchronized relationship, your mind formulates a picture within a hemisphere in your brain, which would either be the alcohol, the drugs, or the sex, or it can even be all three. So your mind's primary relationship is then formed with drugs, alcohol, and sex. Understand that addiction has many facets. Even your normal relationships is actually an addiction to sex. Sex, drugs, and alcohol. Alright, so what happens is that when you're consuming sex, drugs, or alcohol, your mind then manifests a relationship with the sex, drugs, and alcohol. Now, this is the synchronized relationship your mind consciousness system has with those placements within and of the unified consciousness field. And because a relationship is formed, your mind consciousness system cannot impossibly exist without it. Because you have defined the sex, drugs, and alcohol as you, as one, as you, which then forms the perception of an addiction that is experienced, but actually it's not an addiction. Addiction is actually the mind consciousness system not being as you, as what you believe and perceive yourself to be, not having the ability to exist without the relationship that it formed with the sex, drugs, and alcohol. That relationship formation is called addiction. That is the synchronized relationship formation placement of your mind with the sex, drugs, and alcohol, which is addiction. And your mind cannot exist without either one or all three of them existing in your world. Because that's how your mind consciousness system generates its existence within and as your human physical body, constantly and continuously. As you participate, sex, drugs, and alcohol, even all three, constantly and continuously, you have to have more, you have to have more, you have to have it. It becomes the blood of your human physical body, becomes the breath of your human physical body. You cannot exist without it. And that's what addiction is. That's the design of addiction within as a human physical body. Some human beings don't have sex, drugs, and alcohol. Some have then just the relationship placement of the being they're in relationship with. But the same thing occurs. It's an addiction. How do you know it's an addiction? When the beings who are in relationship breaks up, the being goes through the withdrawal symptoms of emotional breakdown. And later on goes on to the rebound design to now replace the previous addiction with another addiction. So human beings, be very careful. If you're working with addictions of the relationship your mind has formed between, for instance, sex, drugs, and alcohol, that you don't replace it with another addiction. In other words, make sure that you as who you are is not defined or dependent on anything that exists separate from you within and of this world. Release yourself from everything so that you stand alone within yourself. And I understand addiction is quite an extensive process to walk through. And it will take moment by moment, breath by breath, extensive self-discipline. And of course then the withdrawal symptom experiences. But human beings, this is imperative for you to do this, because it is not you. It is a relationship formation as addiction of the mind. Because the mind always needs something to exist with and as in relationship. Otherwise it cannot impossibly exist. Thank you very much. This is the design of addiction.